So finally, we're on to the final 5 cards revealed from the mini set. We're starting with 1 epic, and then we've got 4 legendaries to look at. So starting with Maddest Bomber, 8 mana, 9/8. Battle Cry, deal 12 damage randomly split among all other characters. So obviously this is a reference to Mad Bomber, and way back in the day we had Madder Bomber. Finally we have the Maddest Bomber. 8 mana, 9/8's pretty big. Dealing 12 damage is kind of a lot. But this can hit your own face, it can hit your own board, so it's a completely random effect. In any situation where it's more likely to hit your opponent's stuff than your own stuff, you're probably already losing, and this probably isn't the card you want to get you back in the game. There's never a scenario where you can like force this to hit your opponent in the face. So yeah, I mean, it's just a big expensive idiot that doesn't do anything consistent, so it's not playable. But I'm happy it exists. I'm sure there'll be some dumb Shutterwalk deck with it or something. Not a serious card, though. Next up, we have Edwin, Defias Kingpin, the star of the Deadmines Mini-Set. At least, according to the trailer, he kind of seemed like he was. So we've got a 4 mana, 4/4 pirate, which is kind of bizarre because OG Edwin is not a pirate, right? But it's literally the same character. Explain yourself, Blizzard. Anyway, 4 mana, 4/4 pirate with Battle Cry. Draw a card. If you play it this turn, gain +2/+2 and repeat this effect. So draw a card, play it, give this +2/+2, then you draw another card. If you play that card, this gets +2/+2, you draw another card. So pretty powerful effect, I would say. But a lot of the strength of original Edwin is you could play it on like turn 2 or 3, and it was just too many stats to deal with that early in the game. Delaying that even to turn 4 makes this card pretty slow, I would say. And it's also a lot more restrictive than Edwin was, if you're just trying to make a big minion, that is. Because with Edwin Van Cleef, you can have like 6 cards in your hand, and you only need 3 or 4 of them to be playable for it to be really strong. But for Defias Kingpin, you need specific cards off the top of your deck to be playable for this to be strong. So you might play Defias Kingpin, and then you draw into a preparation. That's really sick. But if your following card isn't a spell that goes with preparation, or something that costs 0 mana, then your chain is just immediately broken, even though you had a preparation and your hand already had like a swindle, for instance. So I think it's a lot more difficult to make Defias Kingpin a big early game threat compared to Edwin Van Cleef. But maybe it's just good as a card draw engine. 4 mana, 4/4, draw a card, and then maybe draw another card, and then maybe draw another card. But that kind of just reminds me of Field Contact. But Edwin costs 1 more mana, and it's still much more limited than Field Contact, which you can just kind of hold in your hand until you have like a nice set of cards for it. As soon as Edwin draws into something that you don't want to play, the card draw chain is instantly broken. So if you want to play this in like a Garrote deck, it tends to be the case that you want to hold your Garrotes for later in the game so you don't accidentally draw your 2 mana bleeds before you can deal a bunch of damage. So if you just play Edwin and immediately draw Garrote, maybe you just played a 4 mana 4/4 that draws a card. So I think Edwin, Defias Kingpin is just kind of a sketchy card. I don't think it really does anything that Rogue can't already do better in terms of card draw. I think it's kind of hard to make it a big minion. I just don't really love the card. Maybe they were scared of another broken Edwin card. Which is fair, because when I saw the trailer, I was also scared of another broken Edwin card. Next up for Shaman, we have a Legendary Murloc, Cookie the Cook, 3 mana 2/3 with Lifesteal and Death Rattle equip a 2/3 Stirring Rod with Lifesteal. And the Stirring Rod is just a 2/3 weapon with Lifesteal, nothing else. So, I mean, if you look at Demon Hunter, Eldrazi Warblades used to be a 3-mana 2/3 weapon with Lifesteal, and it was so good it had to be nerfed. So Cookie the Cook is that minion, or is that weapon, but also with a 2/3 Lifesteal minion attached to it. So as far as the value of the card goes, it's definitely strong. But I do think it's a bit awkward. Shaman already has like a lot of weapons it wants to be playing. And if you play like Whack-A-Mole Hammer and Cookie the Cook, then Cookie is going to break your Whack-A-Mole Hammer, which is kind of awkward. And you definitely can't play it with like Bogspine Knuckles or Doomhammer because breaking those would be a disaster. So I can't really imagine this thing play in decks with these cards, and also these cards just tend to be pretty aggressive. I don't think you're as interested in lifesteal in those decks. But like maybe some sort of Control Shaman could be interested in this. But Control Shaman is like pretty far away from being playable at the moment, I would say. So, I don't know. Good card without a home is kind of my initial impression of it. Maybe it's good in like Overload Shaman though. An Overload Shaman that plays Doomhammer and say Rockbiter and Stormstrike. And then depending on the matchup, you can use your Rockbiters for damage with Doomhammer, or you can use them for healing with Cookie. Because if you have your Lifesteal weapon and then you play Rockbiter, you get to heal for 5 instead of 2. That's pretty good, actually. So maybe Cookie makes sense in that sort of deck. Also has good synergy with Inara Stormcrash for a little bit more burst healing from the Lifesteal weapon. So yeah, I mean, it's a good card. I don't think it's going to be played in Elemental Shaman probably, but I could see other Shaman decks considering this. And in that case, it's just like pretty solid card, doesn't do anything meta breaking. Next up we have Goliath, Sneed's Masterpiece. 8 mana 8/8 mech with Battlecry, fire 5 rockets at enemy minions that deal 2 damage each. You pick the targets. So this is actually kind of an interesting card just because it's a multi-targeting effect, which I don't think we've really had in the past. So I guess it's going to be like playing a fire elemental, but you drag your arrow once and then 4 more times instead of just once, which is pretty interesting. Maybe testing out tech for more of these effects in the future. But as far as the card itself goes, I mean, I think it definitely does have enough value packed into the card. It's basically an 8 mana 8/8 with some amount of board clear potential, and it's a neutral card. So if you want to play like Rogue, like a slow Rogue deck, maybe this is your best option for dealing with the board. But 10 damage broken up into increments of 2 might not even be that great. If you're trying to clear like an aggro druid board, then these 5 rockets are going to kill like a watch post, a pack mule, and a squirrel. And like for 8 mana, is that really strong enough? Probably not. It does also have the benefit of being able to kill a big minion. You can kill, this does 10 damage, right? So you can kill like a Libram of Hope with it. That's pretty strong if you're up against the Libram Paladin. But in general, I'd say for the current meta, this is probably just too slow. It's an 8 mana minion that you have to play from your hand that doesn't just win the game. But definitely an interesting card with a high enough power level that it's not complete garbage. And finally, we saved the best for last with Mr. Smite. 6 mana, 6/5 pirate that says, your pirates have charge. So this is similar to Tundra Rhino. And one of the first things you learn about Tundra Rhino is that Tundra Rhino itself is a beast. Therefore, it has charge. And that's also true with Mr. Smite, because Mr. Smite is a pirate. And your pirates have charge. So Mr. Smite has charge. So even just on its own, 6 mana, 6/5 with charge. I mean, you compare that to like Leroy Jenkins, obviously. And Leroy Jenkins was a very good card. You pay 1 more mana for 3 more health, and you don't have to give the opponent whelps. That's pretty solid. But it also gives your other pirates charge. And we've seen a lot of pirates, a lot of just random pirates introduced in this set. But I can't really imagine playing this in like Shaman to give the weapon evolve card charge. That doesn't really seem super impactful. But I could definitely see this just being played in Quest Warrior. Because you already play a lot of pirates, and you also play the Juggernaut. So I could see a very common late game scenario being your Juggernaut happens to spawn a pirate that has like 3 or 4 attack. So you play your Mr. Smite, and then you also play like a Bloodsail Raider. Say you also rolled a like a 4-power weapon. So you play your 6-power Bloodsail Raider, your 6-power Mr. Smite. Your Juggernaut gave you a South Sea Captain. So you're dealing like 17 damage with Mr. Smite this turn. So I talked about, it was like a Cannoneer or something that Warrior just got in the mini set. I talked about how that little pathetic 4 damage thing was maybe a little bit of finishing power. This is the finishing power for Raid the Docks Warrior now. This has the potential to deal a lot of damage in the late game. But also, when considering the Juggernaut, you don't have to roll a pirate and have Mr. Smite in hand. You can roll Mr. Smite and then just play like 4 pirates from your hand, and they all have charge. And then your opponent is just going to die. So yeah, Mr. Smite, really good finishing power for the warrior class. But this could also be a really good N'Zoth card. N'Zoth resurrects a friendly minion of each minion type. Most classes don't really have a good pirate to play. So you can just play Mr. Smite, which is just a good card on its own because it's a 6 mana, 6/5 with charge. And then you resurrect it with N'Zoth, and it's also a 6/5 with charge. But on top of that, N'Zoth can also resurrect your Circus Amalgams, which are pirates. And these also have charge, so N'Zoth can just deal 14 damage now. So yeah, that could be a thing. Maybe you also play this in Paladin, because Paladin has hand buff cards. So you just have this in your hand when you have a Prismatic Jewel Kit out. You buff it a bit with Alliance Bannerman, maybe buff it with High Lord Foredragon. We did see the new Paladin spell that shrinks a minion and gives its stats to something in your hand. So hand buff Paladin now has access to a charge minion, and a pretty good charge minion at that. So maybe hand buff Paladin also closes out games a lot more consistently now. So yeah, Mr. Smite is a good card. I expect it to see a lot of play, particularly in Warrior, but other classes as well, potentially. And maybe it's a really toxic card for the meta, or maybe this is the card we need to keep Quest Mage down so we can actually have a fun meta. So it remains to be seen whether or not Mr. Smite will be the savior or the destroyer.